Hi, I'm Maggie.
I'm Nicole.
And I'm Annalisa. We're a team of mental health professionals from Unleashed Counseling, and this is Bibliotherapy, your self help book club podcast.
All right. Hello, guys.
Hi,
Hello.
I am so excited to be talking about this book. I'm Judging You, The Do Better Manual by Luuvie Ajayi. Awesomely lovely.
Yes, I'm loving it so far. um, that was such a bad pun. But anyway, yeah. So loving the book so far. What are your thoughts, Maggie?
Um, I'm liking it. It's not as like self-helpy as I was, like what in comparison to the books that we've already done. At the end of every chapter, there's usually like a list or like recommendations for self-care or, something of that sort. Not really finding that in this book. She kind of weaves it through her storytelling instead. Um, but this is the first time that I'm listening to an audiobook instead, and I think it was a good choice. Um, just because she has so much personality, and when you listen to her in her audiobook, she's really funny, especially, we're going to get into talking about these chapters, but bleaching a certain part of your body. Oh my god, just hearing her talk about that was hysterical. But definitely like the unconventional approach to a self-help book, and I like this one because it's kind of a change of pace for us, so I'm enjoying it so far.
Yeah, I'm relieved that it's not our typical self-help book. I think we did 4 or 5 of them, and I was getting a little self-helped out, which I don't know if therapists are allowed to say that, but I said it. And so, just jumping into a book that's like she is trying to help us do better. So I don't know if it belongs in the self-help section, the comedy section, the culture section. I don't know where they sell the book out of in the bookstore, but I don't know. I love it. I love this approach to doing better.
I agree. Actually, on the back it says essays as like the genre,
Right.
which is interesting. I don't know where in a bookstore you would find this. If you go to your neighborhood bookstore, ask for where the essays are. um, but I agree. It doesn't feel quite like a self-helpy kind of book. And she has such a relatable and funny way of explaining different things. She has like the hugest vocabulary for some of the different things that come up, right? Like her explanations, like the such bleaching. But she also goes into like for her being Nigerian, right? And her colorful vocabulary of using different Nigerian words and putting it into and having the little footnotes at the bottom to explain to you what it means. It adds like a her own flair and brings in a lot of her own perspectives on life and what it's like to be a Nigerian American person, right? And explaining a lot of these things through that lens. One of the things that I thought was very interesting, especially talking about the bleaching of certain body parts.
I think say anal bleach. I think we can just go for it.
Cool. All right. So
I was gonna be super immature and just say butthole bleach. What it is.
I feel like Lovey would probably approve. So
yes,
butthole bleaching, it exists.
it does. Like, anal bleach is a thing. And so on chapter 4, Under the Knife, it goes into a lot of people's feelings of dissatisfaction with the body that they have, right? And so it goes into the beginning of it is about anal bleach and about, why would somebody do something to a body part that is not necessarily seen all of the time. And depending, what your, situation is, you might see it a little bit more than others, but
Yeah, and she goes from, anal bleaching to, you know, the topic of skin bleaching. And, because she is from Nigeria, she talks about how even in Nigeria, there's so much like cultural appropriation with, they're still expected to have lightened skin, which is like, for me on a personal level, I have something called vitiligo, and that is a loss of pigment in your skin just on random parts of your body. And when I was younger, when I went to my mom took me to a specialist, one of the only like remedies for it was skin bleaching. That was what they recommended, and I was like, nope, I'd rather not. I'm just going to keep it the way it is. But yeah, when she talks about, even in um, she says, even in a country where black is the default skin tone, it still has the white is right ideal. And I put that in air quotes because that's what she had. But it's just because it transforms from that, right? Transformation in your physical appearance and skin to surgeries and those kinds of alterations, right?
she does go into the idea of what does this do, right? If we are going into bleaching our skin, she also talks about, like breast augmentation. We talk about, changing our nose, changing our chin. What does this mean? Where is this coming from? And it kind of, bleeds into chapter 5, which is wait a minute, and weight as in, our body weight, right? And going over body dysmorphic disorder, which can lead to, plastic surgery and have some cultural background. So just for, everyone who's listening who would like a little bit more background on body dysmorphic disorder, it's a disorder that is, you can't stop thinking about one or more perceived defects or flaws in your appearance. So this could be something as minuscule as maybe a scar or something that you see on your face or another body part. It could also be imagined. So if, let's say, you think that your chin looks a certain way or those kinds of things, and if you were asked somebody else about it, they might think like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, or I don't see it. The person full-heartedly believes that this is a huge deal, right? So it absolutely will disrupt their life. There'd be frequent, examining their appearance in a mirror, comparing themselves to others, avoiding social situations and photos because of their feelings about themselves. And they are more likely to try cosmetic surgery. So if we look at just like demographically, the 70% of the cases are characterized by an onset before 18 years of age. So again, we're looking at where a lot of different disorders come from when you're in, going through puberty. You're now noticing your peers in a different way. You're, experiencing social media and the way that bodies are portrayed in movies, TV shows, and advertisements, and really starting to have some of those hits to your self-esteem. And a lot of times this comes from, some dysfunctional backgrounds, right? So it could be abuse from family, friends, or it could be like, bullying and teasing at a young age that can set off this kind of disorder. To give you guys a frame of mind for plastic surgery, though, in 1992, there were more than 400,000 Americans that underwent cosmetic surgery. By 2015, there were 21 million surgical and non-surgical procedures worldwide, and 15.9 million came from the US. So that really shows you how much cosmetic surgery has grown. but also thinking about medical advancing of, some non-surgical procedures. So you'll see like the freeze your fat kind of deals, right? You see the minimally invasive things like Botox or fillers, those kinds of things really popping up as time has gone on. And we think about, from a global perspective, the top 5 places for surgical and non-surgical procedures are the US, Brazil, South Korea, India, and Mexico. A lot of these places, now not including the US, have discounted plastic surgery due to people from poverty that are looking to get these procedures. So instead of like a $5,000 to $9,000 range for like a nose job or something like that in the US, it would be closer to $2,000 to $3,000 in another country. So they're trying to help worldwide people who are looking to get plastic surgery to have it more accessible, because there is that method of, the way that you experience your body physically and mentally, and also the cosmetic surgery, you know, corporation, if we will, big plastic, if we want to call it that, who wants to become more, acceptable and, easier to get to.
So I would just want to chime in.
Sure.
My gut reaction to that is, oh wow, that sounds really predatory. It's like I'm thinking that I automatically sort of skew towards the negative, but it's probably worth mentioning that cosmetic surgery isn't in and of itself a bad thing, right? And wanting to change your appearance or change something about your body isn't necessarily a bad thing. And so I guess my question for you, Nicole, I guess my question for you, Nicole, is when does a desire to change something about ourselves become a disorder?
So when I think of some cosmetic surgeries that are for, if we're looking at helping our self-esteem, right? I'm thinking about people who have experienced breast cancer and are able to get reconstructive surgery to make themselves feel like, whole, right? Or that they feel, they have their more feminine features, or like those kinds of things. Also in the trans community, being able to have cosmetic surgery to be their authentic self, right? Those are times where you're really taking what is on the inside and showing it on the outside. Where it becomes a disorder is for some clients who they're looking for, either they're striving for perfection, they are looking for changing their body in a way that they feel like that is going to be the only thing that's going to make them happy. Because what happens is things, you have an idea in your head of what you're going to look like, right? And if you come out of surgery and let's say you have the quote unquote perfect body that you wanted, the mental component hasn't been touched. So a lot of, different studies that I have looked at has mentioned wanting to have more of a psych assessment when it comes to doing cosmetic surgery.
Hey there, Bibliotherapy listeners. When you're finished listening, head on over to selfcaretips.org/free guide to check out our awesome guide that is full of ideas to practice self-care. Here's why you should grab up this free guide now. Because we love you, because you deserve a break, because if you continue to go at the pace you're going, you'll burn out, and because you may actually have forgotten how to even do self-care. What are you waiting for? Head over to selfcaretips.org/free guide and give yourself permission to do that thing that makes you happy.
In the trans community, this is something that comes up a lot. You have to go through like this huge ordeal to try and become your authentic self. But when it comes to other, cosmetic surgeries, there's not as much of a vetting process. So for somebody who is really truly going through body dysmorphic disorder, where you're finding these small flaws or you're seeing yourself in a way that is not exactly accurate, it could be more detrimental to get the surgery because you're not focusing also on the mental component of where are these flaws coming from, right? Why are we hyper focusing on these certain things? Is it because you had been bullied for your life about what your nose looked like, or if it was about your weight, or if it was about, like, all these different features, right? And thinking that, okay, if this was changed, then I could, cure my depression, or I can be happy with my body again. Those are the huge differences that come between the two of those frames of mind. Because yes, cosmetic surgery is absolutely a great option for some people who have gone through a lot of different things that have taken away some of their features, right, that they would like to gain back. Or I've known people who have had, medical conditions. Like sorry, mom, calling you out, had issue with her nose, right? And that was like a part of being able to breathe out of the right side of her nose. She had to get some kind of, surgery. So those kinds of situations, it's, I don't want to say lesser of a big deal, but there's not that big of a mental component that's connected to it. And just like when we're thinking about treating any kind of mental health concern, you want to make sure that you're not just giving medication and, having them go out, right? You want them to have not only the tools that are given to be content, but you also want to work on where it came from in the first place, and what is going to help us not find something else to pick at, because that is another fear that comes from that kind of situation.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I've heard, a couple people that I know have gotten fillers or, little bits of Botox, but the dangerous thing is I've heard it, kind of be compared to like getting tattoos, whereas like you get one and you start to develop sort of like an addiction for it. Um, and that, that's obviously a kind of a red flag and can be dangerous when it starts to feel, it's kind of going off of that whole striving for perfection thing, because once, you discover that there's an opportunity for you to fix this one thing about yourself, you know, there's a chance that you could be like, oh, okay, well, if I can get this done, then I can get this fixed and this fixed. And, it can be a really dangerous game, you know? Um, and sometimes there's a really fine line, we see these celebrities, it's like one year they look like, one person, and then progressively is just changing and changing and changing where you can barely recognize them. She Lovey talks about people like Michael Jackson and like Lil Kim and all these celebrities, again, kind of striving to find this perfection. Because imagine living in that world where all eyes are on you all the time and you are in that very public sector, and it's not just something that you're imagining, that people are, you are really in the spotlight. So it's interesting to look at it from that point of view as well, with celebrities and public figures going out and getting these surgeries, and also what it displays, I guess, as like a testimonial, or like where you're kind of setting inspirations for other people, if you're a role model, if you're a public figure. So some people will be following in those steps, so it's important to, again, make those decisions based on your well-being and what's going to enhance your authentic self, like you said, Nicole.
Yeah, and that brings up another good point too, of when we look at society, our idea of beauty, or what is the perfect physique, using air quotes, it has changed drastically over time, right? We look at the different types of models that have been used for huge, fashion corporations. We look at how people are portrayed, like Luuvie says, in different TV shows or movies, right? You find this woman who has the quote unquote perfect body who is then going after a man who is considered average in standards, right? And that that puts out that idea of, okay, women, you have to look this certain way, right? Men have, and the one thing that I do want to put out there is that men also have a lot like self-esteem issues, right? They also critique their body. There is also a particular physique, right, that is mentioned for men as well. But this book is geared towards women. So looking at the strive for perfection on a women's perspective. But like, shout out to my men. I hear you. I see you. And, we absolutely hear that you guys have that pressure as well. But the thought of society changing, if you're getting cosmetic surgery to be in the, quote unquote, in crowd for that phase of time, right? Like if we think about, now that, like she says in her book, right? Everyone needs to be skinny, but not too skinny. You need to be thick, but not fat, right? And those are the standards right now of that, like, quote unquote, thick body, right? So having a bigger butt, having, full size boobs, but still having a smaller waist, and having, taller, certain, types of hair, just all these certain standards that come up right now. And so when you think about it, if you get cosmetic surgery, which is a pretty permanent solution to something that is considered a quote unquote fad, if the fad changes and you've realized that now your physique is not necessarily in, that could lead you to want to have more cosmetic surgery. Or if something had gone wrong in the cosmetic surgery that you got the first time of trying to fix it, that can also cause more complications. So there's so many pieces that are connected to having cosmetic surgery that it's not just, oh, I'm going to go fix my boobs, right? Like and she says, like, if I want to go and get, like, full, like, what, C's or double D's that she had mentioned from her non-existent, 404 error not found, boobs that she had mentioned from being in the itty bitty titty committee, as her, she mentions about being the secretary and taking down the notes and, having her Doritos listening to everybody talk about them. It's great. She has such a way with words, but it is in your right to be able to make these decisions, but also remembering that if there is that point of, hey, I want these boobs, and there's that added component of, then I'll be loved, or then I'll be seen, and then I'll be happy with myself as a whole. That might be a flag to tell you there's something else that needs to be addressed as well before we go into trying to physically augment ourselves.
It was beautifully said. Thank you. So I think we should close out with a quote from the end of her chapter, chapter 5. She says, "We are more than the sum of our parts, and we are more than the numbers on our scales. Be like me and judge people by the decisions they make with their eyebrows. That's way more important." We will finish I'm Judging You by Luuvie Ajayi for our next episode. And I know that she spends a lot more time talking about culture, about privilege, about racism. And so I'm super excited to read the rest of what she has to say.
All right, guys. Well, until next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.